have two options for the training. Excuse me. We have two options for the training. We have a synchronous option hosted here at Marian in the first week of July, July 5th through 8th. I have not opened registration for that yet. The synchronous training does have limited seats. We've added an asynchronous option as well through wismo.com out of Atlanta, Georgia. Depending on the size of the group at your school, asynchronous might be a better option for you, especially if you have someone already trained in OG reading. They can sort of host and your groups can pair off and work through the modules together. They are roughly equal, about 30 hours worth of content. And then once they are finished with the training, we also have room for a paid tutoring opportunity, which I'll get to next after OG Math. And I think you folks have access to the chat. If you want to type any questions in the chat as I go, I'm happy to answer them. Is everyone familiar with Orton Gillingham reading, or should I get a little bit deeper into the philosophy of the method? Chat is quiet. The OG philosophy of visual, thank you, Catherine, visual, auditory, and kinesthetic learning, also repetition, that is in the OG reading, and OG reading, Orton Gillingham reading has been around for literally 100 years. We've seen it is very effective in a tutoring environment. The tutoring is already ongoing in the 21-22 school year, and we've seen amazing growth even with just looking at the assessments from the winter. And there's a lot of stories out there to its effectiveness from folks who are currently tutored or who were trained in the method and are now joining us as tutors since they're already trained. The OG Math also uses that visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. So if it's all right, I will share screen now. Oh, it's all the way over here. Excuse me. Can you folks still see that if I move it over here? It's probably not good that I asked because I can't.
It's very zoomed in.
There we go. There, it's very zoomed in. Got a little better?
Yeah, we could just see kind of the logo in the top left corner, at least for me.
Maybe I'll put it back over on this screen. Is it better on this screen?
Yes. Or no?
It is better. Okay, so no. All right, I'll put the link in the chat if folks want to follow along.
We can see it, DJ. Okay. It's better the way you have it now.
Okay. All right. So yes, those three learning pathways: the visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and also the starting with what's easier and moving towards what's harder, having that scope and sequence. So this the math is only an asynchronous option at this time, and it is through OG Academic Math. They are out of Vancouver, Canada, and they work with a lot of different groups. They have a tutoring center, and we just started with them this spring. We have a few groups who have completed the OG Academic Math training and are tutoring now, and they absolutely love it. Now, as far as assessments for students, we have one approved assessment. It's a K1 assessment called the Early Numeracy Screener, which is here. And I will also put this link in the chat for anyone who wants to follow along. But we can use any assessments that you are already giving in your building for math. We'll just have to get some background information on each one so that we can still compare. So there we go. It is out of Michigan. Excuse me, I forget the university, the Numerical Cognition Laboratory. Dr. Hill, I forget the university, if you can help me out. Say it one more time. Andrews University out of Michigan. So we have a lot of partnerships all over the country, one international partner. And so this is really a robust community of educators. And if you ever have questions, there's ongoing coaching. For the math, we will be scheduling seminars throughout the year. recording those seminars for ongoing professional development and collaboration. And since I don't see any questions, I'm just going to keep barreling on into the paid tutoring opportunity. Let me pull that up to display. I probably need to stop sharing this one and then share here. All right, so the Learning Loss Recovery Program, we can also compensate for out-of-school tutoring. So it has to be OG reading or OG math. You can start once you complete training. It can be before school, after school, weekend, or breaks. And do know that doing the training is not an automatic commitment to tutoring. I don't want anyone to turn themselves away from the training because they don't know their schedule coming this fall. I don't know my schedule coming this fall, okay? So we will be surveying throughout the year to see who's gonna sign on for the next step, okay? So if you do sign on down here, you'll get up to 80 hours in the school year. That comes out to approximately 2 hours per week. And the rate is $50 per hour for tutoring. So there is some required reporting. That is the student test number and the minutes tutored. And then we also have you report that pre and post assessment data. I mentioned the early numeracy screener, and also we can use any assessments you're already using. And we may approve more screeners as the year goes on, and we're able to have more of these seminars. And what's great is since we already have to report minutes tutored, we just translate that straight to the timesheet. So tutors are paid as independent contractors and will receive a 1099 at the end of the calendar year, which is a little bit odd because you're approved for 80 hours for this school year, so keep an eye on that. Currently, we only have a mailed paper check payment option, but we are looking at adding a direct deposit option. And I actually accidentally closed my chat, so let me see if there are any questions. No questions. So I'll pause there if anything comes to mind. Otherwise, I think I'm ready to hand it off to Jillian if she's here. Yeah, I see you there. Hi, Jillian.
Hi, everyone. Sam, do you mind if I share my screen? I know I said that I wasn't going to, but I did have a couple slides I think might be helpful.
Yeah, that's fine. And just know that this is specific for Orton Gillingham, but I think it's good to give both presentations, just try to keep it kind of more condensed than what you probably would do in the next half.
Yeah, absolutely. So hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. My name is Jillian Lane. I am the Director of City Connects Midwest at Marian University. I work directly with Sam and the rest of the team to implement City Connects across the state of Indiana and the Midwest. So wanted to share a little bit about what City Connects is. So City Connects is essentially a student support framework in which you can deliver student support in your building. City Connects was established by Boston College approximately 20 years ago. They've been implementing City Connects in the Boston area for that 20 years, and we decided to bring it to Indiana with the increased learning loss challenges that schools have been facing. So what makes City Connects unique is a few different things. Some of the core aspects of the practice is the implementation of what we call whole class reviews. So every single student will receive a conversation between a staff person. You'll get a staff person by signing up for City Connects that will conduct implementation. So that site coordinator will meet with every teacher in your building to talk about every student in the building. Those students that have higher needs and more immediate needs will then filter through into what we call an individual student review, where a more in-depth conversation will occur in conjunction with the teacher and site coordinator, but also with any other administrators, other teachers, or faculty and staff in the building that might hold information about that student. So essentially by the end of the academic year, or honestly by the second semester, every single student in your building should have their own individualized student support plan. So regardless of the intensity of needs that a student might have, every single student will have a plan put in place. Of the review process, there are 4 key domains that students will be evaluated on: social emotional well-being, health, academics, and family. So all of the conversations that are taking place will focus around those 4 domains. Another core element of what this full-time employee will be doing for you beyond the individual student reviews and whole class reviews will be community outreach. So, you know, those of you that are familiar with an MTSS type process, while a lot of times those conversations talk about all of the supports that the school themselves can provide, the site coordinator will actually be able to tackle any of those out of school factors, which we know greatly impact academic achievement, and can work with community agencies and community partners to fill those gaps in services that your building might not be able to provide. Again, you know, we all know that it would be great if schools could provide all of the things students need, but that's not realistic. And so a big piece of what this person will be doing will be cultivating relationships with agencies that can provide those additional supports and services. So that is City Connects in a nutshell. And I don't know if there's any questions about the practice itself. Again, you know, this is a practice and a framework in which to deliver student support, not necessarily like a program, kind of like Orton Gillingham is. It's a little bit different. So I'll pause for a moment and see if there's questions about the practice itself.
Yes, Jillian, that is my bad. I thought this was a shared meeting. If there's no questions about City Connects, I do have one thing I forgot to share about OG Math. Because it doesn't have the brand recognition that OG Reading does, there is a free course at the end of that link that you can sign up for as a preview, if anyone wants to take a preview before they think about sending folks to training. That was the one thing.
Thanks, TJ. So questions about City Connect specifically. Let's see. So I see in the chat, City Connects, do they provide a person that does this service, or do we find someone in-house? So a little bit more about that. So this would be an additional full-time employee that will join your team. They will be a Marian employee. However, we want them to be very thoroughly embedded in your school. So they will be in your building every day. They will report to your building every day, have office space in your building. While Marian will be the employer, we will be working very closely with school administrators to ensure that it doesn't feel that way, and that we're providing that support to that staff person. A couple of things about who this person is. Yes, it's funded through EANS 2. So just like Orton Gillingham, this will not come out of the EANS 2 funding that you applied for. This will be kind of like the icing on top. So we will fund that full-time employee. This person would ideally be a master's level social worker, school counselor, or something within that human services realm. The thing that's nice about this individual is that not only can they work to implement City Connects and the practice itself, but they can also serve as potentially a provider in your building. So they can fulfill that kind of social work role, small groups, therapeutic services. That's a part of what their role can be. And being that many of your schools are smaller in size, that's a lot more realistic kind of expectation that can be provided. So this potentially could be someone that's in your building or in your network already, but we have found that for lack of a better term, repurposing an existing staff member, it can sometimes be hard because people in your building already know who they are and identify them with certain things that they do in the building. So that transition can be really challenging. And because of the limited amount of time that the funding is available for the 2 years, I would recommend finding someone new to fulfill that role and kind of starting with a blank slate. We provide all of the training, onboarding, weekly coaching, all of that. So we don't expect you all as school administrators to be subject matter experts. We are here to serve in that capacity, but then to work very closely with you and the site coordinator to make sure that the work is done effectively, efficiently, and with fidelity.
And just there was a question in the chat just to clarify that the partnering with City Connects or Orton Gillingham, it will not impact your EANS 2 funding. So this is additional services through additional funding through the Department of Education. So it's all managed through the department and the Center for Vibrant Schools. So you will not have to take money away from your current allocation or find funding for this.
Yes, and Danielle, I know your group is already active. So essentially that would just happen on my end here at the center. July 1st, I would move you over because you're EANS 2 eligible, but you won't really experience a blip in your training, or excuse me, your tutoring program that you've already set up this semester. And if you've requested those summer hours, you won't even really have to worry about it. I'll just kind of quietly on my end shift you over to EANS 2 once the school year starts.
Oh,
Once the
wonderful.
program year starts, excuse me.
Okay, thank you.
Nice to see you, Danielle. See you.
And Angelica, I saw your question in the chat as well. So we will help to recruit this individual. I would recommend as well, we're in the process of getting the job posting live. So what we can do is if your school decides to participate, we would love to be able to cross promote with you. So I think if you all we could work together on promoting the job posting. Our intention is that we will kind of conduct the screening process, and then we'll connect you all with this individual that is to be hired. Again, while we're the employer, it's really important that you all have say in who this person is, because we know that having them fit into the fabric of your school community is really important. So we will work very collaboratively on recruiting this individual, and our intention is that you are very much a part of the process and a part of that decision-making process as well, to make sure that this is the right person, not only for to work with your school environment, but also to work with your student body as well. So that'll definitely be a collaborative process we can talk about in more detail if you were to sign on.
Are there any other questions before we kind of wrap up this little section? We still
I just wanted to say,
oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to say whether you are already active OG or not, you will get the same service. So if there are folks on here who don't know me yet, or don't know Jillian, Alex, or Sam yet, you'll be able to start July 1st with EANS 2 and get the same service that Danielle and others have been doing for this last school year. So thank you, Danielle, for mentioning how much you've enjoyed it, and I hope we can have some new active folks.
Absolutely. It has been wonderful. And it was nice to see that there was an additional layer that you guys have created. So we are all in.
That's great to hear. I'm going to add into the chat what the next steps are for anybody on the call. Also, there's more information there. So before, oh my gosh, I almost said May, March 31st, you'll have to submit the application for both the Indiana Department of Education and the Center for Vibrant Schools. That can all be found in one application on the department's website, and I've included that there. And so what you'll do is you'll have to fill out what you need to fill out for your EANS 2 allocation that was made specifically to your school. And then there will be an opportunity after that to select an interest in City Connects or Orton Gillingham. You can select both. And then there will be a link for an application that's specific to the Center for Vibrant Schools. And that's just so we can learn a little bit more about your students, your teachers, and the services that you're looking for. And then from there, we'll be able to reach out and do a follow-up meeting to really dive into what Orton Gillingham is, or what City Connects is, and what those next steps might look like. Any questions about that or any of the information that we've provided so far? Great. Well, we'll be hanging out. I think we had promoted this a little bit more as a two-parter, so we'll also be hanging out and have perhaps more schools or school leaders hopping on in a little bit. So feel free to stick around and let us know if you have any questions between now and then. And then I know both Jillian and TJ have included their contact information if you wanted to talk to them more directly and one-on-one. And then a big shout out to IDOE for hosting this for us today, because that's been really great to kind of get the news out. So thanks for that.
Yes, thank you very much for hosting. that this is not the allocation. So in that first website Sam posted, if you scroll down to EANS 2, it has the list of allocation amounts. OG and City Connects, you do not have to put those in this application. Just at the end, you have to indicate, yes, I do want City Connects, or yes, I do want OG, or yes to both, and then fill out the linked application. And it's at the very end before the signature. So you'll have to do everything else first, and then at the end say yes, yes, and go to our application as well.
Perfect. So like I said, we'll be sticking around in case anybody else joins for like the second half of this. So you're all welcome to stick around and see part 2 of the presentation. But otherwise, thanks so much for your time, and let us know if there's any thing that we can do to support you as you submit your application, or if you have any additional questions.
I'm gonna hop off. And if the next group starts asking about OG, just come visit me at my desk and I can come back on. Thank you, everyone. Oh, sorry, I got a direct message. Just to be clear, I can apply for this even if I didn't apply for EANS. No, you must apply for EANS 2 in order to use OG and City Connects with EANS. So if you are not EANS eligible, then that's a greater conversation, but you can also check that you are EANS eligible on that website, the first one that Sam posted. Sorry, I can't read whoever that was. You're very welcome. I can't read your name though. Marissa, okay, I got it. Marissa, are you already active in OG tutoring? I recognize your name a little bit. See you soon. One of your teachers. Awesome. Thank you, Marissa. Talk to you again soon.
Ted, did you want to say any? Ted, did you want to say anything to the folks that just joined before I just jump right in?
Oh, go for it. I think we had sent out the invite a couple of times to schools that would be EANS eligible from the listing. So no, go for it. I know everybody's time is valuable.
All right, perfect. So I will just jump right in. So welcome everyone. My name is Jillian Lane. I am the Director of City Connects Midwest here at Marian University. I'll speak a little bit about City Connects as a practice. So I am going to share my screen. And so for those of you that are with us from the previous meeting, hopefully this will be helpful. So City Connects was established out of Boston College approximately 20 years ago, and was really established out of the fact that we know out of school factors are hugely impacting the ways that students achieve in the classroom. And so City Connects was born out of that. And so oftentimes in schools, student support is something that is happening, but oftentimes it looks like this, where everybody holds different relationships and different people are referring students and families to different services at different times. While we know and understand that in many cases, you all probably have partnerships like this that are already in existence, it might not be as organized as it could be. And so what City Connects does is creates really an equitable approach in which to deliver student support, and really systematizes the way in which student support is delivered. So taking this kind of chaotic image and creating a system behind the way that student support is delivered. So not only are they identifying school-based supports, they're also identifying community-based supports. And also through this practice, you are able to have a better understanding of maybe where some of those gaps in services are. And City Connects can help to identify those in order to close those gaps for students. here's kind of another image of what the system kind of might look like, and the types of services that might be provided in those two categories. What makes City Connects particularly unique is that as a part of City Connects, you will get a full-time employee, a master's level social worker, a school counselor, and in this role, they will be working every year to assess every single student in every single classroom. And that's done in a couple of different ways. So that there's a sit-down meeting that happens with every teacher and what we call the site coordinator. They review every student in every classroom, 3 to 5 minutes, looking at 4 key domains, assessing a student based on academics, social, emotional, health, physical health, and family and academics. And so they will meet with every teacher to talk about every student. Those students that have more intensive and immediate needs will then take part in an individual student review. So where the first meeting is between the teacher and site coordinator, the individual student review pulls together a larger team, maybe additional student support staff in your building. It could be an administrator, or it could just be additional teachers that hold pertinent information about that child, and a more intensive conversation takes place. After these two types of meetings occur, then an individualized student support plan is created for every student in the building. So by second semester or early second semester, every single student should have a student support plan, regardless of how intensive that the needs might be, or maybe it's just more type of enrichment type of support that a student might need. From there, once the plan is created by the site coordinator, they work very closely with the families to coordinate these supports, but also with community partners, because we know that schools, while they can provide a lot of really great support for students and families, you can't do it all. And so City Connects really takes a conscious approach to also incorporate community outreach aspects of the practice in order to, create the village around the students in your building, and to really build and cultivate relationships with community partners. And then the final piece of the practice is that really important step of follow-up. So usually 6 to 8 weeks after the plan is created, the site coordinator will sit down and evaluate the plan. Is it working? Is it not working? Maybe we need something more or different. So the follow-up is a part of the practice, and is really important in ensuring that the students get what they need over time. So one of the things that also makes City Connects really unique is that you really have a standalone person that's doing the work. And so what we call a site coordinator is embedded in the body of your school. While it's technically going to be a Marian employee, we want them to feel and act as if they are your own employee. So I'll talk more about kind of the logistics around that in a moment, but these are some of the things that that person will do. So you can see on the left side of the slide, it's talking about really everything that is City Connects. So that's probably going to be 90% of their position is really the implementation of the City Connects practice and those core components we just talked about. From there, I mentioned that we want them to be a part of your school environment. So they can help with pickup and drop off, lunch duty, support other initiatives in the building, with the qualifications of this person being a master's level social worker or counselor. They could be a part of the student support plan, delivering small groups or therapeutic services. So this person can really provide a lot of really great supports within your building, and to really create and take a leadership role in establishing a student support framework in your building. So we talked about these. So I'm going to take those slides down, stop sharing my screen. I'll pause there and see if there's questions specifically about the practice. I guess before I do that, Alex, do you want to talk like really concretely about what each of these schools will be getting? I kind of alluded to it through talking about the practice itself, but just to get explicit about what do they get as a part of this EANS funding?
Sure, absolutely. Hi everyone, I'm Alex Chipley. I'm a program manager, and I'm one of the folks working closely with principals and the site coordinator to provide kind of guidance and coaching. So a little background on my role. Ultimately, what you get, as Julie mentioned, full-time master's level clinician to be embedded within your school. So yes, they'd be responsible for carrying out the City Connects practice, but also participating in the different school duties that you might have, lunch duty, pickup, things like that, to really embed themselves within the school. And then they'll be responsible for carrying out the practice that whole class review, individual student review, kind of coordinating those meetings with the teachers, doing outreach to community partners, helping families get connected to those community partners to ensure that students and families receive the services that are within their plan, and then doing that follow-up as well. We'll be here supporting them throughout the process. We don't expect you to be experts in City Connects. You're experts in your schools. We'll be experts in City Connects. So we'll provide kind of the coaching and onboarding for them, weekly meetings with them to check in to make sure that they are carrying out the practice. And then we'll be meeting with you all to ensure that they are kind of embedded within that school in an appropriate way, meeting your expectations. So we'll be in constant communication with both you and them as well. And I know we had some questions earlier about kind of the hiring process. We'll assist with identifying some candidates, screening those candidates, and partnering with you to make sure that they're a good fit for your school, and then that we'll make sure that they're a good fit for the program as well. And so we'll kind of continue that constant communication throughout the school year to ensure that it's a good fit for kind of on both of our ends.
Thanks, Alex. And Alex kind of alluded to us being the subject matter expert. So we will be doing all the initial onboarding of this person, while we also encourage that they participate in any kind of professional development that you all are doing in your building. That's kind of that piece that's important to us in terms of being embedded in your school fabric. But we'll provide the initial onboarding and training of that person. We provide bi-weekly professional development so they can really hone the skills of what it means to deliver City Connects in a school building. And then we, Alex specifically, will be working closely with the schools as a part of this project, and we'll be providing that site coordinator with weekly coaching calls. So we'll kind of provide that supervision element as well. But it'll also be working with you all as school leaders directly too, because again, we can't do the work without you, and we also want you all to be as in the know as you need to be and want to be. I see this question about the arrangement for how long. It'll be a 2-year partnership, so the next 2 academic years we'll be implementing this City Connects practice. And I know we had some other questions earlier as well about how the funding specifically works. So if you apply for EANS 2, this will be in addition to that funding that you already requested. So this won't come out of the allocation that you requested through that application. This will be on top of. Any other questions? I think one other piece just to add is just about the practices in general is that it's very data driven. So as Alex mentioned, he'll be working really closely with all the school leaders. There's several reporting aspects of the practice. There are easily, there's like a dashboard of information that you can you'll have access to, can log into to see like what the progress is, what are the partners that you're working with, how many of these individualized student support plans have been created, and like be able to see the progress of this individual. But also there are several reports that talk about like give percentages of the most common strengths and needs of your student body, and talks about the amount of services referred and delivered, who those program partners are. They'll also get access to a large database of existing service providers. So for example, if you're an Indianapolis school and you bring a site coordinator into your building, they are collectively gathering information about services in conjunction with other Indianapolis site coordinators. We're going to have probably close to 30 or 40 in Indianapolis going into the next year. So it's a collaborative in terms of the resource and referral process, which is kind of nice. I saw a few questions coming into the chat. So yes, if you'd like to contact me directly, Angelica, or any of the other group, I'll put my email in the chat. In terms of next steps, there are a couple things. One, if you haven't already applied for EANS 2, you'll want to do that through the DOE. And then we have a secondary application that we at Marian will ask you to complete. It's short and pretty brief, but once that application comes through on Marian's side, we will follow up with you to schedule just another conversation, kind of like we're having today, just to get in more detail and talk specifically about your school. And then we'll do collectively, once we have all of our schools signed on, we will do a more intensive training about what City Connects is, because we want you all to have a deep understanding of what it means to be a City Connect school. So this is a very high level conversation today. Are there schools currently implementing City Connects? Yes. And so Jeremiah, if you would like to be connected with an existing, I think maybe, okay, there you are. Jeremiah, if you want to be connected with an existing City Connect school, shoot me an email and I'm happy to facilitate an introduction for you. No problem at all. So we have 35 schools across Indiana that are currently implementing City Connects. We have a couple of schools in Ohio that have actually been implementing for the last 12 years. So they really believe in the practice and have been able to see the results. And as you all know, when you're working with students, that outcome measures really aren't evident until about year 3. So we can definitely speak to some of, the schools I can connect you with, Jeremiah, can definitely speak to the kind of immediate impacts of City Connects. But if you'd like something to talk to a school that has more kind of longitudinal experience, I'm happy to connect you with an Ohio school as well. So just let me know what you prefer. And I see Sam put the link for the IDOE EANS 2 application in there. So in the chat, you can find the IDOE link. Our Marian application is hyperlinked in the IDOE application. If you have trouble finding it, just send me an email and I can send you the direct link. That's no problem. But the IDOE form does need to be completed by the 31st in order to be eligible.
Instead of just putting it in the chat, can I always like to say what I have to say? The chat feature is time consuming. Is it possible, even though this is recorded, can you send out your PowerPoint presentation again, please? Yeah, I want to be able to look at greater detail.
You bet. And we actually have, what I might do, Jeremiah, is send you, we have a 4-page document. So Alex, if you don't mind following up with the group, we have a 4-page document that'll be a little bit more brief, similar images on there, but a little bit more palatable than all the slides. So we'll get that over to the group afterward. And if you'd like to have a follow-up conversation, just let me know. Yeah, feel free to unmute yourselves. We don't have to be solely in the chat. It's no problem.
Another question. Since we are primarily non-public schools, our school is brand new and we're small. Does size determine if we'll get a City Connect partner or not?
It does not. So generally speaking, the ratio we recommend, which Jeremiah, I'm assuming this probably isn't an issue, but just for context, we usually recommend 1 to 400. So 400 students per 1 site coordinator. But the nice thing about the smaller schools is, as I mentioned on the slide where you can see kind of some of those additional responsibilities, what's nice for the small schools is that the site coordinator can deliver more of those direct services. So while it may not take them as long to implement the whole class reviews and individual student review processes in a smaller building, they can be much more involved in the delivery of direct services. So again, like I said before, like they could probably host a handful and coordinate a handful of small groups if that's appropriate for your building. Maybe it's they help facilitate some after school programming or clubs, you know what I mean? So like those kinds of additional student supports that you might want to be able to offer to students, this person can really take onus of those things. And that's one of the things that we will just work with each of the individual schools on in our planning process over the next few months, is just to kind of talk through, what are the things that you don't have that you want to have? Can this person help be the conduit to making those things happen? And in the smaller buildings, it's so much more feasible. So I hope that answers your question, but we can definitely talk in much more detail about that throughout the next several months.
I know a couple people are hopping off, so feel free to leave if you've got what you need, but we'll stick around if you have any questions. Love talking about our programs and practices, so happy to talk more in depth.
Jeremiah, can I ask which school you're at?
Yeah, Harriet Tubman School of Excellence.
Okay, awesome.
This is our first year of operation.
Okay, congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah.
Mary or Jeremiah, do either of you have any outstanding questions? We might be able to finish a little early.
I have none. I'm currently sending you an email so we can.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
All right.
All right, Ted, I think we're good to go, but feel free to send any folks over to us if needed. Happy to answer any outstanding questions as they come up.
Thanks for joining.
Thank you for hosting so much.
Yep. Thanks, everyone. Have a good rest of your day.
Bye, everyone.